Lord, may we serve you all our days, ever rejoice to sing your praise, as we together your wisdom seek. Charge us with truth whene'er we speak. Lord, may we ever know your will. Come to us when our hearts are still, as we your guidance with joy receive. May we as one your bliss achieve. As we your guidance with joy receive, may we as one your bliss achieve.
This morning's reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriya-yoga, and based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Self-reliance versus self-reliance. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Last week, we considered the need for attunement with God, with the gurus, with the wisdom of others, until we make that wisdom our own. There is a strong and in fact valid belief nowadays in the need for standing on one's own feet rather than depending weakly on others to carry us by their strength. Swami Kriya-yoga was once asked, "What is the best yoga posture?" "That one," he replied, "which sets you squarely on your own 2 feet." Our strength must come from within. If that strength comes from the ego, however, instead of from soul consciousness, it is like a guitar string without its sounding board. The note it emits will be thin and feeble. Our strength must come within, but must be coupled with the recognition of our inner link with broader and higher realities. Everyone in this world whose life is glorious or prosperous or powerful, know that his achievement is but a little spark from the great sun of my effulgence. This was from the Bhagavad Gita in the 10th chapter. Jesus, in talking to his disciples, emphasized also the power of attunement with his own consciousness as a ray of the divine. For this ray had descended already through him in response to their devotion. It was a sign that God was already listening to them with receptive attention and did not require to be wooed in that way any longer. In the passage preceding the one we read last week, Jesus said, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman. Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away, and every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth, that it may bring forth more fruit. Now ye are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye, except ye abide in me." This was the meaning of Paramhansa Yogananda's counsel, also when speaking more intimately to the disciples of the need for attunement with him. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om. Well, welcome everyone to this morning's service, and welcome to those who are joining us online. For anyone who doesn't know us, my name is Nayaswami Suryadas, and this is my wife, Nayaswami Chandi, and it is our great joy to be here with you this morning, sharing these beautiful teachings. There is a saying in America, a kind of cliche really, that we should lift ourselves up by our own bootstraps. And in fact, when Yogananda came to America in 1920, he greatly appreciated the can-do spirit that he found in Americans, the willingness to roll up their sleeves and do the hard work that was needed to solve problems and to make life better. That being said, if you have a cell phone, please silence it. That being said, we cannot do anything solely by our own power. We can reach down and grab our bootstraps and we can pull as we will. We're more likely to strain our back than we are to lift ourselves off the ground. Unless we become saints or unless we become masters, then such things have actually been known to happen. But then it wouldn't be by our power. It would be by a greater power. It would be by God's power. But of course, this saying is not meant to be taken literally. It's meant to be figuratively. But we can't do anything by our own power because we have no power that is separate from God. If God withdraws his power from our lives, we wouldn't be able to so much as lift a finger. We cannot get out of delusion by the power of the ego. We cannot realize our oneness with God by the power of the ego. The ego, by definition, wants to keep us in delusion. And the ego doesn't know the consciousness that we are seeking. But God and Guru do. They live in that consciousness, and they alone can lift us into it. They can give us the strength, the inspiration, the courage, and the power to realize our oneness with that consciousness that they live in. There is a story that is told in India of a man who had kind of an evil trait. He loved to kill birds. He loved to shoot birds. He would kill birds anywhere and everywhere he could. And it wasn't as if he wanted to eat them. He wasn't killing for food. He didn't even take them to a taxidermist to turn them into trophies. He simply shot birds and let them fall wherever they would. And he got great joy out of this pastime. But soon the birds began to get wise to this man. They began to avoid him. They started avoiding his property. And so suddenly there were no birds for him to kill. And this made him very sad. So one day, the man was out walking near his property, and he came to a pond. And standing before the pond, there was a saint. And the saint was wearing the ochre or orange robes of a renunciate. And he watched with interest as the saint waded into the water up to his waist. And the saint extended his arms out to the side. And suddenly, from all directions, birds came flying in, and they landed on his arms, they landed all over his body. And the saint felt great joy in being with these birds. He spoke to the birds, and he felt God's presence in those birds. Like Francis of Assisi, he had the magnetism to draw those birds to him, and he felt great joy in their company because he knew God was in them. And the man watched all this with amazement. And he thought, if I could dress up like that saint, maybe the birds would come to me and I could shoot them. And so the man purchased a robe that was similar to that the saint was wearing. And he knew that it wouldn't be easy to fool the birds. He knew that he'd have to do more than just dress the part. So he tried to be like the saint. He tried to think like the saint, to act like the saint, to have the vibration of the saint. And he went out to the pond, and he waded into the water, and he extended his arms, and lo and behold, birds came from every direction, and they landed all over his body. And he was very happy. He thought, now I can magnetically draw birds to me whenever I want, and I can shoot them. But then something started to change in the man. He found that he actually enjoyed the company of the birds too. And he began to feel the presence of God in those birds. And so something really shifted in this man. He no longer wanted to kill birds. And in fact, he never killed a bird again. But every day he would come out and he would draw the birds to him and he would spend time with them. He would commune with them. He would commune with God in them. And over time, he became more and more like the saint. And in fact, in time, he actually became a great saint in himself. We too, like this man, can become more like the saints, can become more like the masters by tuning into their lives, perhaps reading books about them, watching movies about them. We can learn about our masters, all of them, in one book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And in this way, we can tune into their presence. The masters are always with us. They're always available to us, but we have to tune in. We have to do our part. And we can start to attune our consciousness to their consciousness. And in that way, they can enter into our lives and they can change us. We need to emulate their lives if we want to be like them. When I was a boy, maybe 7 or so years old, I watched a movie with my father. And the movie was about the life of Christ. And I remember being deeply inspired by this movie. I was very uplifted. It was a very profound experience. In fact, I think it was the most profound spiritual experience I'd ever had in my young life. Now, in those days, like many 7-year-olds, I had a really wild and vivid imagination. And I think it's even fair to say I lived in an imaginary world. As I walked to school in the mornings through the streets of LA, I was walking through a magical forest. I would enter the halls of my school and I was entering in these great castles full of jewels and such. And I always was some hero in some story that I loved. Maybe I was Robin Hood, maybe I was King Arthur, or some other such character. But now I was deeply inspired by the life of Jesus. And I imagined that I was the boy Jesus, because that's what inspired me. That was the story that I was interested in at that time. And in pretending to be the boy Jesus, who would grow up and become the Christ, perhaps he already was the Christ, but he'd grow up to share God's love, God's joy with all the world. In pretending to be Jesus, I became just a little more like Jesus. Now, I'm not saying I became a saint or anything like that, but my consciousness was uplifted in the practice of imagining myself to be Jesus. At the time, because Christianity probably doesn't really look that highly on thinking that you're like Christ, I thought it might be wrong for me to do this, but I was actually uplifted in this. And so Yogananda used to give a book to some of his close disciples, and it was called The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. And this is a somewhat difficult book to read because it uses some kind of archaic Christian language. We hear the word sinner a lot, which Yogananda said, never call yourself a sinner. But the general theme of the book is a beautiful one. If we want to be more like Christ, we need to imitate the life of Christ. If we want to be more like the masters, by extension, we need to imitate the life of the masters. We need to tune into them and in any given situation think, what would Master do if we're a disciple of Yogananda? What would the masters do? Or we can ask, what would you have me do, Master? And in this way, we open ourselves up to their presence. And they're always there, but we need to invite them in. We need to open our hearts. we hear in the purification ceremony the words, the Master says, open your heart to me, and I will enter and take charge of your life. And I'm surprised I'm getting choked up. I say that every... Anyway, so the Masters will take charge of our life. But that opening of the heart, that's the important part. We have to call on God, call on the Masters with devotion, with longing to know them, to know that consciousness that they live in. And then if we do that, they will come to us, they will lift us up, they will empower us. They will empower us, especially on the spiritual path. But even that power can be used to do other good works in the world as well. There was a woman who visited Ananda village. Her daughter lived at the village. And she came to visit, and she was walking in a meadow. It may be the big meadow where the Temple of Light is now built, I don't know, but it's quite possible. But she was in this meadow, and Yogananda appeared to her in a vision. And Yogananda spent a great deal of time talking to this woman. They had conversations about all kinds of things. And towards the end of their conversation, she asked him, do you come here often? And Master said, I am here always. God and Guru are always here with us if we have eyes to see. They are always speaking to us if we have ears to hear. We have to tune in. We have to open ourselves up to that presence. Shortly after this experience, where the woman was in the meadow speaking to Yogananda, Swami Kriyananda was speaking to a group of disciples about this experience. And I want to share what he said, and I want to read it in his words because it's something that I don't feel to paraphrase because he says it so beautiful. Don't think how lucky those people were who lived with Master. You are with him now. Master is here all the time at Ananda, in this room. You can feel him. He is omnipresent. His love is a constant presence. Wherever you are, when you sincerely call him, he is there with you. You are the focus for his presence. All you need to do is make his love more dynamic to your awareness. Anywhere where disciples are, the Master is there. Swami said Master was always at the village because devotees were calling on him. Master is here in this temple because all of us are gathered and we're calling on him. Master is in our community. Master and God are everywhere that we can go. They're in the homes of all the disciples who meditate on his presence, who follow his teachings. It is up to us to decide to be more and more aware of that presence, to tune in and to draw it into our lives more deeply so that the Master can lift us up, so that God can lift us up into that consciousness in which he lives, in which they live. There is another way that we can draw on this grace, on this powerful presence of God that is always with us, and that is simply to smile. It sounds a little silly, sounds a little simplistic, but Master emphasized this often. If we are remorseful, if we are angry, if we're resentful, any of these kind of negative feelings, we close ourselves off to that presence which can benefit us. We close ourselves off to that power, to that greater self, even to our own higher self. Yogananda wrote a poem about smiling, and I'm going to share that with you in a moment. But before I do that, I just want to say one thing. Really what we're talking about in this topic today is being in the presence of God, tuning into the presence of God. And in 3 weeks from yesterday, Chandi and I will be leading a retreat at the retreat center on the practice of the presence of God. So it's a way to go deeper into this idea, into this thought, how to draw on that power more by being more aware of that presence. I'd like to share with you the poem that Yogananda wrote about smiling, and I invite you, if you feel to close your eyes. This is from the book, let's see if I can remember what book it is. It is from How to Live Without Fear. And many of you just took a 3-week class series on this topic. Perhaps you explored this poem, I don't know. But I found it to be very beautiful and very uplifting. It's a little bit long, so let's tune into this. Smile when the roses are budding. Smile when the petals of pleasure are falling. Smile when vigor is throbbing in your breast. Smile when you have dreaming wrinkles in your brow. Smile because you find happiness in peace and not in passing possessions. Smile because you are fearless. Smile because fear is ashamed to cause you apprehension and failure. Smile when trials burst upon you. Smile when the goblin of poverty stalks. Smile when all hope threatens to leave you. Smile when you are crying. And smile when you are laughing. Smile when you are losing, and smile when you are winning. Smile when you are good, and smile when you are bad. Smile at the sad past, for it is no more. Smile thinking of the joy of yesteryears. Smile at the past, smile today. Smile tomorrow, and you will qualify to smile forever and forever. Smile newly with the ever new smile of God, every second, every minute. Smile every day in the year, and keep smiling in God forever. So let us roll up our sleeves and do the hard work that needs to be done to overcome our faults, to overcome anything that keeps us from communion with God. But let us not seek to do it on our own. Let us call on the power of God, the power of our masters, to help us to overcome all delusion. And let us smile always with God's smile. And then we'll come to live always in His joy, and we can share that joy with all souls. God bless you.
Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea, fly like a gull, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Never in anger, never in haste, go without pride, be never abased. Freedom is yours, in freedom you give. To all give it freely, in freedom you'll live. Mountains that stand up tall to the sky tell us no dreaming is ever too high. Dare to climb boldly, brave that high peak. You'll never know failure if bravely you seek. Dare to be different, dare to be free, dare to roam far like wind on the sea, fly like a gull, soar high on the air, be strong in your courage when others despair. Be strong in your courage when others despair.